Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with two-time FFPC champ AB. Alongside him is my guy, Dio the Machine. Guys, we got the running back rankings, AB's running back rankings. I want to go through those a little bit because, again, I think it's a little controversial. He gave us a whole 64 running backs.
64.
64
How many running
running
backs like levels is that? Running back 5? Those
I
are
have
running
no
back
idea.
5? What's my math? 12 divided by 6, 64 divided by 12?
Some of these guys probably won't make the roster. They got ranked as the top 64.
64.
But let's go through that top, like, echelon running backs.
Top tier?
Yeah, top tier. I'm surprised you got CMC first.
64.
Let's go through these running backs. Like, what were you thinking about when you created these tiers and created the running backs on this list?
I mean, I think about everything. Honestly, like, I don't know. I don't really think about upside floor. I'm just like, this is what this guy's going to do. Like, I understand players have like a range of possibilities and that goes in, but then ultimately it's just like, calculation, what kind of feelings I have about a certain player, like reading the tea leaves, like what I've read, what I've heard, and then gut feeling, all that kind of thrown into one pot, and then boom, this is what, if I gotta, pick one guy, this is like how I feel. And so the CMC one, like, obviously I think the biggest thing is everyone talks about injury, and 100% get that. So like, if that is a big thing to you, or you someone who just like avoids guys who have been injured multiple times, and don't draft him number one overall. But if if he were to make it the entire season without getting hurt, there is no argument for anybody else. I don't care. Like, you talk about everyone, when we talk about everyone else, it's almost as if we talk about them wishing that they could be CMC.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, CMC has a really good O-line. He's in a really good system. He is a true workhorse back, not just via carries, but also via the pass.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't even, and I'm not talking about true workhorse like getting 98%. I'm talking about getting all the valuable touches. He's going to be on the field third down. He's going to be on the field in the hurry up. He's going to be on the field in the red zone. And yes, he'll share some work. They're not going to, he's not going to play 100% of the snaps, but you don't need him to. But the amount of workload that he gets in the high value touches that he's likely to receive behind a really good O-line, behind that, in a really good offense with a really good offensive scheme and a really good offensive coordinator / head coach. Like, this is what we want all of our other running backs to be, volume, receptions. And these rankings are for PPR. So when you go through the rest of the list, now we're starting to talk about, okay, this guy has this, but he doesn't have this, or I'm worried about this, and so everyone else below him has warts. CMC's major wart, and I'm not minimizing it, is his injury. But just like I, faded CMC's last year, and I was, basically, I'm not taking somebody who has 400 plus touches, who played well into the Super Bowl, who was actually coming into the Super Bowl healthy. I was like, I'm fading CMC at the 101 last year. This year, he basically has had an entire off season. This year, I'm willing to take that risk, and you don't have to draft him at 101 right now.
I do think he has more than one wart, FYI, but like, I think age is technically age, and I guess career, how long he's been in the league. He's going into year 9.
Yeah.
And what, they typically say year 9 is when running backs start to hit that cliff and start to struggle. And, right now we're talking about same thing as Kamara, same boat this year. James Conner, year 9, but with all that, regardless of that, I was going to ask you, so are you taking C-Mac number 1? Or let me not put you on the spot with number 1. But
I'm not taking
are you saying C-Mac and taking him at 1 or 2?
What do you mean taking him at 2?
Like with the second overall pick?
No, so I'm a volume drafter.
Okay.
So what I'm not going to do is not have shares of these other players. When it comes to playing like in these, like, whether it's best ball or redraft, with maybe the exception of drafters, but when you have like these tournaments where you are advancing, or the last 3 weeks are what determines who's going to win all of the money, you have to diversify, because CMC can finish the number 1 running back points per game wise over the entire season.
Right.
But his last 3 weeks stretch may not equate to that of A-Chain.
Right.
Like A-Chain can finish the season as the number 4 overall running back total points, right? But his last three games included a 50-point game, and then a 20-point game, and then a 23-point game. So those things you can't account for. So I want to make sure like these guys that I still really like I still really like these guys. That's why these guys are all in the same tier.
So if you had one bullet though, or let's say you have 3 bullets. If you have 3 bullets and you kept pulling like 104. Because C-Mac's gonna be there at 104.
Yeah.
99% of the time he's gonna be there. So if you have 104 and you like, I got 3 bullets, this is all like FFPC, you're paying $350, you're gonna put $1,000, they're gonna give you 3 teams.
Yeah.
Like
you said 4 bullets.
3 bullets.
Go with 4 bullets just so I can make my point.
If you got 4 bullets and you keep getting 104, or like between 103 and 105, like what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna choose CMC once. I'm gonna choose A-Chain, who's my number 2 overall back. And then I'm going to choose Bijan once, who's my number 3 overall back. And then I'm going to choose Gibbs.
Now, keep in mind, you don't know you're going to keep getting 103 to 105. Like the first draft, you play it, 103, 105, cool. Okay, that I'm assuming you go C-Mac.
No, I don't. So, like, if we're, like, now applying this to, like, real life, like, real drafts.
Yeah, like, say you got 4 drafts, and you're going one at a time.
And,
you're like,
and we're applying this, I'm taking whoever's ADP is the highest. So, it's going to be Bijan the first time I'm going to go.
Okay.
If I only have 4 drafts, and the first time I get 104, I'm taking Bijan. Okay. Because I don't know, I may get 108 next time, I can get CMC.
But if you do that, what if you get 112 the next 3 times? Then you lose that on C. Then you lose that. You lose that on your number 1 running back.
But this is why for me the tier ranking is important too, because these guys are so close that I'm going to be happy with either of them.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
I'm I don't know, man. If
in this scenario, which obviously is unlikely, right?
Yeah.
But in this scenario, if you did 4 drafts, that first draft you got 104. You could have took C-Mac, but you don't. Like, say you play out, you take Bijan, and then the next 3, for some reason, you just keep getting 112, 112, 112.
Then I'm going to do 4 more drafts.
But what I'm saying is, if the season plays out and C-Mac goes crazy, you're going to be mad at yourself for skipping him on that one draft.
I mean, because we've had this conversation, this is the beauty about doing this. This is like therapy for me. Okay, people think we're doing this to like help them out. I'm not. This is
we
therapy.
Don't care about
this is therapy. This is like me like testing like my my like
stress
theories.
Test.
Yeah, like these players that I'm high on, you guys kind of like bringing me back down to earth. This is really what this is. But like for me, I'm not going to be upset about it because I understand that going in. Plus, I just know I'll just do more drafts.
Yeah, I'm just saying if you only have 4 though.
If I only have 4, I would take that same scenario. To me,
the
tier ranking is very important. Like more important, really. I mean, it's all kind of important to me, but more important to me as I was like putting this tier together were like actually the last 2 tiers.
Okay.
Because I feel like these last 2 tiers, like we draft.
We can get on it then.
Yeah, we draft a lot based on ADP, and these last few tiers are either guys who may have roles but are in backup situations, or guys who are potential handcuffs, or rookies where we're not even quite sure if they're going to be the handcuff, but they, I like their talent profile, so I could see a scenario over the course of the season where their role increases, or something happens via injury, and like a JPM ends up,
me looking at your list right now, I think at 27, it starts to get super flat, right? I think literally you can scramble it and do it however you want to do it. So
Agreed.
I don't think it's too controversial what you have from 27 to 64. I think the controversy is really going to be at the top, right? Like the A-Chain. And y'all know I love A-Chain.
Wait. I mean, Barkley being in the second tier of running backs and not being at that top
That's what I'm saying, the top.
So
like the top is where the controversy is.
And this is basically, I'm using the exact same logic I used last year and the exact same logic I used the year before. I'm not going to draft a running back coming off 400-plus touches and then who played in the Super Bowl. I'm just not going to do it.
I got you.
They're just so.
Well, I mean, that's it. I feel you on what you're saying about Barkley. I just don't know if I'll have him behind Genty. Genty's the one that just kind of.
So Genty, I'm using the logic of CMC. To me, Genty I can see just the scenario very easily to me where he is getting the hurry up. He's getting the third down. He's getting the 2-minute. He's getting the high value touches like, in the red zone.
Maybe.
If Chip Kelly's offense is like, they're able to take that next step. They're getting more scoring opportunities. I just see a situation where he's getting volume. That's the reason why I have Gibbs at number 4 right now. Because to me, Gibbs could just, this new head, offensive coordinator could just to say, you know what, Gibbs is our best back. He's going to be our 1, and Montgomery's going to be our 2. But it's hard for me to believe that You know, I'm not ignoring that. Like that's why I got to draft Gibbs, but it's hard for me to ignore the fact that David Montgomery's there, and the market is not ignoring it either because he's going in the 6th round.
See, that's why I think we'll get on it a little more later on in the show. But that's why Gibbs being in that first tier, if we're going to truly make a tiered system like this, I just can't rock with. Because to me, Saquon, even if you're going to take injuries out with CMC, then we should take injuries out with Barkley as well. And at least we know that Barkley is the bell cow running back that's there. Whereas technically, Gibbs is kind of in a split backfield, and we're not so sure that he's going to get all of the goal line work and that Montgomery isn't going to be a nuisance like he has been the last couple of years.
So last year, what I did with CMC was I moved him at the very bottom of that tier. And he was going 101, so I just knew that, like, for me, that meant that, like, I was not going to get him. Okay? With Barkley, I moved him below the tier, not really not knocking him just because of the potential injury risk. We are kind of using that as a crutch, maybe too much. Okay, like he this easily could stay healthy. But the reason I'm using that is because he doesn't catch a lot of passes. I don't want to bank on like him having this historically efficient year, scoring all these touchdowns. So that's why he's below that tier. That's why I have Genty above him, because I feel like unless that offense change, unless Jalen Hurts changes, unless this happens, there's too many what ifs of him, or too many what ifs are needed for him to actually have a lot of volume in the receiving game.
But honestly, if I hear that argument you're making about Barkley, I think when we look at Genty, I think the only bet people are making on Genty right now is the talent. Right, I don't think people know.
And
they
don't
know this. Okay, yeah, draft capital.
That's historic.
Barkley had great draft capital.
But I'm talking about in terms of just like him kind of being in the position and looking at the talent around him, and then looking at who the offensive coordinator is.
But that's what I'm saying. I think everything else is more speculative. Like we see how things are coming together in the puzzle piece, and we're like saying, okay, this probably then means this means that. Yeah. While when you speak of Barkley, you're speaking of, you saw what he did last year. Like you saw he wasn't getting a lot of passes last year. You saw he was losing those goal line touches.
And I know Hurts historically.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like with Barkley, you're like saying this is what we saw, so this is what you're down here. While Genty is more like, this is what you perceive most likely will happen. So that's fine. I mean, I get it, but I just mean that argument can be a little bit, difficult to. Now, I will say this, going back to your list, I think the biggest things that stick out to me, and I'm sorry if I'm loud, I apologize, turn down my mic. But Taylor and Brown, you got to speak on those two, because Taylor being above Barkley and Henry, I don't think I've ever seen. Yeah, I'm not say ever seen, but seen this summer thus far. Yeah, so that kind of sticks out to me. And Brown being, above Jacobs, Irvin, and maybe that's okay, but still, I don't know if people have Brown that high. I guess if you're high on him, it's not too crazy. But tell me what you're thinking of with those two players.
Yeah, so JT kind of really just kind of comes down to, me kind of coming to the grips or the reality that it's likely Daniel Jones in the helm. I don't think he's going to be CMC in the passing game, but I think even just a few more there,
think they'll get helpful.
More. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, and this isn't just recency bias based off of how he finished the season. I feel like he's still somewhat in his prime. And it's a good,
What year is he going into? 5?
I think 5 or so. Yeah. And, he's in, to me, what I believe to be a really good offensive system, And so if Daniel Jones is the quarterback for the majority of the year, now you got increased goal line work potentially. You got a few more catches here and there. But I also just think it's just a better offensive system, which means more plays, more scoring opportunities, things like. So when I see JT, I see like Derrick Henry with a slightly more involvement in the passing game.
It's crazy about what you're saying right now. If you would have said everything you're saying right now, if you would have said this last year, like Daniel Jones, you feel good about the offense. Daniel Jones, like you've been like, man, what are you talking about? Like Daniel Jones
have I been on Daniel Jones though?
I know, but still, like Daniel Jones, like we used to think so badly about the Giants' offense because Daniel Jones was the quarterback, and now we're positively thinking about the Colts because we hope Daniel Jones.
But he was also behind like just a terrible O line, and he needs to be behind a good O line where it's just like simple reads here and there. And then I think that offense is going to ride through JT. I think they've done a lot on defense, so that team really wants to make the playoffs.
And Chase Brown, I'm sure you don't have to say too much. I mean, you're just high on him.
Chase Brown just comes to like, do you feel like he's going to be the workhorse back there or not? And I feel like he's going to be the workhorse back in an offense that's going to struggle. And I just see a situation where he could be used very heavily in the pass game.
I can see that.
Like that. So that's really why I have him that high.
I got you. I don't know if he's gonna have that great workload, but I can see him being real efficient, being used a lot in the passing game. But
are you really that high on, or I guess that low on Ramondre? I mean, like, I know the last time we saw him, he was benched.
Yeah.
You know,
where does he have
new
Henderson?
coaching? He
21?
has Ramondre at 40, and he has Henderson at 21. So, I mean, presumably Ramondre is still the starter there,
lower.
right?
You know what?
Dalvin should be over him.
Okay. Ramondre, you may argue that. This may be a bit of a hedge because, if I'm being honest with myself, I have not drafted much Trevion Henderson at all. Pre-draft process, I was actually not. I thought he was like extremely athletic, all that, blah 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 blah. But I just didn't think he was an actual like really good running back, like in certain ways, So I never saw him as like somebody that could be used as a workhorse.
Crazy.
But just the more and more kind of like look at this New England offense, and with Daniels being there now, I'm just wondering if there's a situation where he's getting both, maybe like 40% of the carries and then getting all the third down work, all the passing game work. And I don't know what they're going to do in the red zone because McDaniels is to me, I need to go back and I need to maybe look at these numbers, but I feel like he uses or utilizes backs who can catch the ball in the red zone. Like I feel like he wants his back to not only be able to like run in between the tackles, but also be a threat in the passing game to have things really be as efficient as they can be and as successful as they can be in the red zone. So I'm just starting to see a situation where maybe Henderson is used a little bit more with those high value touches, and then Ramondre is just sort of kind of the in between the tackles kind of guy, in between the 20s kind of guy. I just struggle between the OC and the head coach and like these guys like Vrabel versus McDaniels and like what this offense is going to look like. Is Vrabel going to dictate that like they really go slow, that they really go through the run game, that they minimize that they minimize pass. I really struggle with. So I put him there because I need to start drafting a little bit more of them, to be quite honest.
Last thing, Jaylen Warren. How do you feel about him being so low and being so much below Caleb Johnson? I mean, like he's a whole tier break.
That's fine with me. Keep him on these lists so I can keep getting more
of
them
in
draft.
That was Fideo.
That's cool with me.
That's to keep his ADP down.
I'm not gonna argue that one at all.
Listen, running backs are becoming more and more important when it comes to drafting. It seems like a lot of these running backs are being drafted higher than in previous seasons. So, guys, please take a look at AB's running back rankings. It's really important, and I think it's going to be really important to getting it right if you're going to win that $1 million prize, is choosing the right running backs, not only early, but also late. So him going 64 running backs, I think
that's a good question. Are y'all drafting running backs early this year? Is that what we say with this list, Abby? And I guess Chris, too?
I am.
You're drafting running backs early
I think I put it inside the group chat that, like, I feel good now about drafting that running back in the first round. Like, for some reason, my Bills just feel a lot better.
A lot of people are, and I think, that may be the right case. But I think a lot of that is also recency bias.
Definitely recency bias.
But I don't know.
100% recency bias.
But I don't know if the recency bias is a situation where, like, okay, the league has sort of kind of adjusted, and maybe we see this league kind of in this flow where the running backs are getting more of the usage and being more successful, like maybe for like the next 2 or 3 years before we see another transition. So the recency bias may play out. I think for me, I actually kind of used something that you mentioned maybe a year or two ago, because, obviously I've been drafting since February. That's crazy. That's not even a joke. That's legit. Crazy. I've been drafting since February. But because I've been drafting since February, I remember a couple of years ago, you were like, early in the draft season, I like to draft wide receivers early and then running backs late because so much can happen through training camp. There's a lot of ambiguous situations. Things change. And so really a good majority of my drafts have really been kind of targeting and attacking wide receivers early. So I actually have quite a few like 0 RB builds and like maybe some hero RB builds.
And the second part of that is the closer we do get to the season,
the running backs come out.
The higher I would draft running backs, because now people are health is most likely to play. We now get a more certain view or picture of what the backfield is going to look like. So that's definitely my strategy. So.
And I'm kind of making that transition now, because also now the board has settled a little bit, because a lot of running backs you could I'm going through. I'm always kind of going through my old drafts and just looking at kind of just the entire board.
Where you messed up.
More so, obviously, I'm kind of more so just looking at the board in general. Where I messed up. Yeah. No. I'm like, damn, I could have taken that guy there.
Right.
But you just look at drafts. We're like, okay, damn, I got DeAndre Swift in the 10th round, or I got ETN in the 11th round, or I got you just early in the draft process, obviously pre-draft, but you got all these 11th and 12th round RJ Harvey shares, and just so many guys that are going low. Even and then things fluctuate. One guy goes up, another guy goes down. So now that ETN is going up, now I'm okay, well now I can get back on. I can get back on Tuden.
Yeah.
Same thing with Tracy and Cam Scattergood, those things. So it's almost when I'm drafting, I'm not necessarily just okay, this guy's higher on my list, so I'm always going to grab him, or I'm going to be targeting him. I'm definitely taking into account ADP, and I'm definitely taking into account and I want to take advantage of those ADP.
And honestly, that point right there is really why I'm not really a big rankings guy.
Yeah,
it really be on the vibes, straight up, you gotta. It's like you're in your.
It's
in your flow, you know what I'm saying? You see how the board is playing out. You're like, okay, this guy's dropping. I usually don't get him, but this will be a good, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'll leave this thought with both of you, right?
Yeah.
With all this stuff we're saying about this year and running backs and again recency bias and all that stuff, I think one factor that's much different than probably any year in the past that I can remember is this large influx of viable running backs that just came into the league.
Oh yeah,
large influx. And I'm not unfortunate. I don't know how the season's gonna play out, but it's hard for me to believe all these running backs that we know are talented are not going to be used.
Yeah.
So with this new influx of all these variables that we didn't have to deal with last year, and again, like I was stating earlier, these running backs are getting older.
Mm-hmm.
Teams might decide, we want to keep our guys fresh. You want to have some kind of committee.
Yeah.
It might just change the whole landscape of how the running back position is played this year compared to how it was played last year. Yeah. And I think that's a factor. It's hard for us to envision right now because we haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even seen really camp reports all 7th round picks like Brashad Smith. I saw him on your list.
Yeah.
What if we hear that he's the 3rd down back? That's a 7th round pick.
And we're already kind of hearing it he's already.
That's what I'm saying. Y'all know I like Phil Maffa. He's a 7th round pick. Hunter, 4th, 5th round. All these players that we're talking about right now. I'm not even mentioning the guys we haven't even heard of yet. I'm talking about the guy we're talking about right now are about to theoretically play roles in these backfields. So I even heard something the other day. Shipley, I heard, might get a little bit more burn this year.
Play the 3rd down.
Yeah,
that was Gainwell's role, and that's what. And the thing is that team wants to win a Super Bowl. Do they really want to be giving?
They can't give Barley.
Yeah, they can't. To me, there's so many outs to where and again, I'm not saying Barkley's a bad pick where he's going. Again, this is kind of one of those situations where okay, say he finishes as the 7th overall running back, but then those last 3 weeks when they're fighting for number 1 overall seed, and he's getting 80% of the running back work, and he's putting up 30-point games, he could win you a championship.
Right.
Those things you cannot predict. But
that's why the goal is really just to get to the tournament.
Yeah,
get to the race, and then let the chips fall as they may.
So that's a good segue. I want to talk about some of these high-end players that were drafted in the 1st and 2nd round. Let's talk about specifically the 1st round. I'm going to pull up Fantasy Mojo's board. Is for the Big Gorilla draft.
So we're going to do this for
on
every round?
FFPC. Well, let's just do just round 1 this week and maybe think about doing round 2 next week. Because I think round 1 players, we often think that those are can't miss players.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of talked about that. And you hope that they are. Yeah. But they all come with some warts, as we've been kind of talking about. So let's talk about them for a little bit. Specifically, let's talk about Ja'Marr Chase. Let's go through, who is considered consensus number 1 this season, kind of go through. Obviously, depending on where you're drafting, what platform, this ADP can change. But just to remain consistent, let's use just FFPC's Big Gorilla board. And we'll use this same board if we do multiple weeks because obviously there's some fluctuation in ADP. But there's very little fluctuation with Ja'Marr Chase as the 1st pick. So give me the argument for Ja'Marr Chase being a bust?
There is none. I'm excluding injury from any of these conversations.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
Or at least unless it's relevant.
All right, but
No, you got to exclude like injury, right? You have to.
All right.
But I mean, if a guy's like injured right now,
I don't want to use because again, I agree with Abby. I don't think he'll bust, but I'd rather use the term not be the top wide receiver or even top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if he's wide receiver 4, that's a good season,
right?
But that's probably not what you're hoping to draft at 101. And for me, I mean, y'all know I talked about this several weeks ago. It's just been so long since we've had repeated number 1 players at their position.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and every year we go into the draft season so sure, right? Mm-hmm. We are sure, like we don't care. Yeah. There's nothing that can happen. CeeDee Lamb that year, there's nothing that can happen. We won't let him come back as wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
C-Mac, the years we drafted him. We haven't had a player like that since I guess the AB years. Yep. Antonio Brown was, the number 1 for like 2-3 years in a row. So that's my only thing. But honestly, when I look at it closely, I don't see anything that
one thing that
knock him.
One thing that could happen is just like, some of these other wide receivers, you can see the rise of Burton.
Yeah.
Like
okay, there you go.
Because apparently he's having a good all season.
More mouths to feed, basically.
More mouths to feed.
Yoshivas gets a little bit better.
Yeah. You can see
Gesicki might utilize him, even though that'd be crazy.
The run game becomes a little bit more efficient. Like maybe Todd Brooks actually gets involved and
maybe defenses play Chase differently, right? Yeah. Maybe it's like they just don't want to be embarrassed. I mean, he embarrasses players.
Or maybe the Bengals defense actually they signed their
they get a little bit better.
Yeah, they signed their first. All these guys that are holding. Or
what'd you say, Chris?
Have we seen the best of T. Higgins? I mean, maybe T. Higgins takes another step. Like now now that
he got paid, now he's feeling
comfortable. I mean, I don't know if that contract, from what I've heard, makes you feel comfortable, but maybe we see another step from T. Higgins, and that takes away.
I mean, obviously, this is going to be the hardest one we talk about because he's the 101, right? Unanimous. 99% of the time he's 101, so it's hard for us to really see the problems.
I will say, for me, the only reason that I take him at 101 is because I know I can't get him at any place else.
Yeah.
But it's not because I feel like he is that head and shoulders above the rest. I don't that's just recency bias.
Right.
That's just recency bias.
But I mean, and honestly, you kind of have to because, like you said, if you don't take him at 101,
you got to take him.
You can't make a bet that you're gonna first of all get the 102, and then the first pick is gonna pass on him. So you have to take him there.
All right. So it seems like close to consensus. Second pick, Bijan. Give me the argument against Bijan being the number 1 running back that's coming off the board.
Penix is basically just low key, like a less risky Jameis Winston. Does not check it down and is just torching in the passing game. Bijan will get his design looks and he'll get some things here or there. And I'm not gonna lean on the last 3 weeks stat totals, but just a situation where like Penix is just only looking downfield, only looking to get.
He didn't give him much work last year in the passing game, right? I think
it was like a weird box score where he was like basically averaging like a yard per reception or something. It was something weird.
With Penix, right?
Yeah, with Penix. So again, it's just small sample size, but yeah, I think that's just it. Basically, we don't see that like dominance in the passing game, and then the other thing is like Tyler Algier.
Have they improved their offensive line this year? I haven't really paid attention there.
It seems like they made a lot of moves to improve the defensive line and trying to improve that defense. So
and I guess the question is Penix going to, help that team or offense improve as a whole?
That's the other
because
thing.
If not, if they end up being a team that's just losing all their games, they're going to abandon the run game and just try to throw all day. And again, if they're not throwing it to Bijan, maybe it's the London year, maybe it's the Mooney year, the Pitts,
or maybe the offense is not good,
or maybe they just suck. Yeah, maybe they just suck. So, you don't want. Has there ever been a running back one that was on a bad team that y'all can think of?
CMC.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
CMC was with the Panthers.
Oh, with the Panthers. That's true.
Yeah. All right.
And they did call him CMC of the South.
Yeah.
So maybe.
Yeah.
No, he's not earned that title just yet.
No.
And trust me, I love Bijan is an amazing running back, like amazing, pound for pound, an amazing running back. Yeah. This question is like, his involvement in the passing game.
Yeah. All right. Third pick, Saquon Barkley coming off the board. We've already talked about Saquon, obviously. The number of
few other things we didn't bring up though.
Mm-hmm.
No. I guess we have talked about, but I think the offensive coordinator change is something we don't want to dismiss.
Mm-hmm.
They promoted, I think, somebody in-house. What was his name? I don't remember his name. But we don't know what kind of offense he's going to run.
Yeah.
again, the workload, and then Shipley. Again, we mentioned all those already before, but those things are a concern for me. And I think another thing, and I heard somebody talking about this recently, but in the past, like in past seasons, we really don't see Saquon too much in the offseason. But since they won the Super Bowl, I've seen him a lot.
I'm seeing him a lot.
Yeah, he's enjoying his Super Bowl win.
Yeah.
And new contract. Like he's having fun,
Yeah.
Even spending time with Trump, I seen, what I'm saying?
Yeah. He's on the scene.
Yeah, so we'll see.
He's on the scene. All right, let's talk about pick number 4, Justin Jefferson. Listen, it's hard for me. I see Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in that same area that like it's hard for me to see him busting, but give me the case. Pause. It's
super pause.
Yeah,
cut that out. No, you know what?
It's hard for me to see him not doing well this season.
You know what? I just want to start this because he's the one I'm the most concerned about in the first round.
Really?
By far.
We've seen him produce with so many bum quarterbacks.
Yeah, but we don't know what McCarthy is.
Well, I think he's a bum, but we've seen him.
Well, they have improved that O-line.
Right. So, they've added a running back. They traded for a running back specifically. Again, I mentioned this, I think last week, but I think that team wants to run the ball more this year than they have in the past. And one thing I saw a stat recently is they've never played a game, or maybe they played like 1 or 2 games where it was Addison, Jefferson, and Hawkinson.
Yeah,
they've always missed one of those 3 pass catchers. So now and we're talking about solid pass catchers, people that can hold their own. With all them playing together, it might be a thing where it kind of reduces his workload. And I mean, we've seen games where Jefferson just doesn't get a lot of work for whatever reason.
I'm not gonna lie, low key vibe wise too. Like when I'm on the clock, I just like, let me just like, let me go get him.
I mean, I say all that to say
I pass on him a lot.
I say all that to say he can still have a great year. I'm not saying he's going to bust. It's just he's the one that concerns me the most.
I'd agree. I co-sign that.
All right, the one to me is most likely to be a bust in this first round. Personally, let's talk about Brock Bowers. For some reason, Brock just has a lot of ifs and warts out there. I'm saying Brock Bowers. Give me the argument.
Yeah, so like there's like a lot of what ifs. That's kind of how the more what ifs you got, the more further the further down the board you move. And sometimes those what ifs are they're positive. What if this? Okay, boom, it ends up being like a good thing. But the what ifs, he's in a new offensive system. There are new offensive weapons. There's a new head coach. There's a new quarterback. Like so,
new OC.
Is the quarterback going to favor the tight end when he, is he going to lock in on the tight end?
Which historically, I don't think Geno has.
Yeah, or is the offensive coordinator? And I'll just kind of leave out Pete Carroll. But someone had an interesting stat about I think no receiver ever having X amount of targets or something like that. But yeah, is the offensive coordinator going to base his system around Brock Bowers?
Which historically, I don't think Chip Kelly has.
Yeah, but from a standpoint of not just basing his system around it, but I mean from a standpoint, and I really want to put this in perspective, basing his system around
a tight end
Bowers, where he is going to do so well that he's going to pay off this top 4, top 5 ADP overall in a tight end premium.
Yeah.
Okay, because people will say, "Oh, Brock Bowers is amazing." Of course, Brock Bowers is amazing. He's great. He's this and that. He may finish as a top, overall tight end, but is it going to be enough to pay off that what is it? Top 5,
6, top 5,
ADP in the tight end premium. That's a lot of what is. So he makes me nervous. So I just saw it.
Not to mention the other weapons on the team. Genty, another guy being drafted. I think the first, maybe he dropped to the second now, but somebody that people expect to be a major part of the offense
in the receiving game. Yep.
Not just recently in the running game. When they're in the goal line, in the red zone, they're most likely going to give him as much work as possible. Again, we've already talked about how we believe in his talent. If the system also matches the talent, Chip Kelly being an offense coordinator likes to run the ball a lot, run a lot of plays. It might be a thing where he's the guy that he has the juice, and Bowers is the one kind of sitting back. Not to mention the other guy. And don't get me wrong, Bowers super talented. We all love Bowers. We get why he's going in the first round. I'm not arguing it.
And I'm drafting. And I drafted.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. It's just that you got all these like Dante Thornton, Jacob, Jake Myers, even Trey Tucker. You got all these other players. Even Raheem Mostert, you have all these other players that might get the ball. And one thing that was big about Bowers was his workload.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the biggest things about him. So if you reduce that workload, what happens then?
Yeah, and they still got Michael Myers there too, right?
And Mike Mayer, Mayer, yeah. So they didn't want to trade him. So
yeah, Mayer. I don't know why I call him
Yeah.
Michael Myers.
Yeah, he's a tough one. But the other reason, like for me, with him is just like, I'll just wait and just get somebody else later. I mean, like if you look points per game, who was like the leading tight end last year.
Here's the thing: if you're gonna take Bauer, the reason you're taking Bauer is because most likely there's two reasons. Number one, you're just taking a value, right? He probably dropped to you. You probably don't get many picks there. You're just like, I want Bauer. But the most likely reason is you think taking a high end tight end is important, right? So if you're a believer in that, if you don't take Bowers in the first round, most likely McBride's not going to fall back to you to the second.
But you know who will?
And Kittle is usually taken in the late second, early third. So if you do take him, you have to literally kind of take him above his ADP. Where's Kittle going right now in the ADP for Mojo?
Who had
301?
Who had more points per game last year?
No, I'm not arguing the.
No, I'm just saying. But I'm saying, like, you know, it's like
I'm not arguing, you know, who was better or who's the better value. I'm just talking about where you have to take them. Gotcha, a person that takes Bowers, the only place you can take a high-end tight end is going to be at that 105, 106, 107. Otherwise, you're going to miss on the other two, unless you reach.
That's true, because Bowers is at 301. So,
real quick question, side note.
You're talking about Kittle.
Out of excluding those three, are there any tight ends that you think realistically can, like, finish where those guys finish?
No.
Damn. I've never. Okay,
I do.
That was definitive. Who?
No, I don't.
One, I think we're sleeping on Travis Kelce. I think he wants one more season. No. I think he is. Like,
let him talk. Yeah, go ahead.
When we talk about Travis Kelce having a down season last season, he still outproduced a lot of these tight ends that we're drafting ahead of him.
I think sorry, I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
No. I think that offense really wants to get back to running and gunning this season. I can see Travis Kelce bouncing back.
I think the biggest factor, right, and I've heard it other people now, so I think it's kind of spreading this mindset, but I think the biggest factor is usually when you look at a tight end that's going to finish one of the top tight ends in the league, he most likely is going to be one of the first or second options on the offense.
Yeah.
You know, so we see that in Bowers, we see that in McBride, we see that in Kittle. You know, I don't think we see that in Kelce because you do got your Rice, you got your Worthy, you still got, other players there. You know, now if he is, because he wasn't that way that last year, okay, maybe we're talking.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if I see that now.
I can see him number 2 in that offense.
I mean, you can play the narrative out, but it's not the likely narrative right now.
I think with a guy like Worthy being there that stretches defenses, I can see that creating space for a guy like Travis Kelce.
Yeah, but you can say create space for Rice too, though.
Yeah, but I think that Travis Kelce is a better talent for his position than Rice is at his.
But we saw them last year together. The first few games of the season, it was all
Kelce
Rice.
Was just done.
It was all Rice.
Yeah, Kelce was like not involved at all. But I mean, it was a limited sample.
It was.
All right, so let's go to pick number 6, Jahmyr Gibbs. We talked about Gibbs a little bit. I think we touched on David Montgomery still been in that offense. Any other thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot.
There's a lot with
Gibbs. You want to touch on?
No, I'll let you start.
Okay.
By the way, let me say this one thing. Remember we talked about him a few weeks ago when y'all told me the OC was Johnny Morton, and I was wondering if it was the receiver.
Yeah.
The O-line's receiver. It's not the O-line's receiver. It's a white guy. Same name though.
Okay.
Same name, but I have to look it up because I was like, man, Johnny Morton, is he a coach now? But go ahead.
Yeah. So O-line could be worse.
Will be worse.
Will be worse.
That could be. They just lost the best center.
Will it be
one of the best centers in the league?
Okay, will it be significantly worse?
That's relative.
Yeah, losing 2 O-linemen is going to hurt. So it's hard to argue that it's going to be better. You lost what has been like the most coveted OC, prospective head coach like in the last, couple of years. So it's kind of hard to see that that's like not going to impact things. David Montgomery is still there. When David Montgomery was healthy and playing early in the year, remember, it's not as if like David Montgomery was like not effective.
Yeah.
Like he was still highly effective, and so it's just it's hard for me to just see that like David Montgomery takes his role where he's like, like basically the backup, getting like every 4 series. It's possible, like Gibbs is that good where he could force it, but like that's another what if into the equation.
But why would you need to, right? Like why would you need to force? I mean, unless the OC is just like, they just believe in the talent and they just want to ride. But if I was the OC, especially with the way they finished the last couple of years, I'd be thinking long term.
Yeah.
What's the thing I'm going to be able to do to keep both guys freshest to go on this long playoff run? And for me, that's both are effective, right? So we're not even talking about like too much of a lower talent guy.
that's the thing that's an argument. That argument right there is like, because every time I listen to the argument for pro Gibbs, I always go back to like, this offense has been like historically amazing using both guys.
Mm-hmm.
So why would they say, you know what, let's not be historically amazing like we've done.
Right.
Let's not do what has worked in the past.
Yeah, let's
like
risk
at a historic level,
injury risk,
and let's just say no. We're just gonna give it to Gibbs. And I'm not saying that it can't happen, but like it's hard for me to think that they're thinking that it
why.
Yeah,
like, why do that? What's the need to do that?
Yeah. But and then the other thing though, this is an interesting thing that I was like looking with the Lions, and somebody's gonna have to explain this to me. There is not another team that has this many guys drafted, or with I think they have the highest ADP amongst like any team that's drafting 4 or more skill players.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 guys going basically in the first round, or at least one guy going like at the 1-2 turn.
Mm-hmm.
You got Gibbs and you got Amon-Ra.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then this is in tight end premium. Then you have Laporta going in the 4th round.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sometimes he sneaks into the 5th. Then you have David Montgomery, or you have Jameson Williams going in the 5th round.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty much like locked in the 5th round now.
Right.
Then you have David Montgomery going in the 6th round.
Yeah.
That's 5 guys.
Yeah.
That's what the market is telling us. 5 guys like going that early. Not all these guys are hitting.
Right.
Yeah.
Who is not hitting out of these guys? And like when we talked about Gibbs last year, I remember I kept like saying like, look, you just got to get Gibbs because like you never know what can happen. Like if David Montgomery goes down, Gibbs is going to win leagues. And sure enough, like he won leagues. And it wasn't that thing where I was like, oh, like I see this happening. It was just one of those things like this guy is that good that you have to have shares.
Yeah.
Like you got to have shares because like if David Montgomery gets hurt, like he's going to win championships.
Right.
But yes, I don't know. It's hard to like draft that many.
You touched
players.
on all the points I was going to say, so that's good. I will say on the other spectrum of it, the Lions last year they had a schedule where I think they play like a ridiculous amount of dome games.
Yeah. And
of course their offensive line was good, so they were always in positive game script. They were winning a lot of their games, so it's a situation where they were able to kind of control the narrative of the game. I think this year they're going to play a more difficult schedule, obviously a lot more outdoor games, so they might not be blowing teams out as they have before, so they might have to keep using Gibbs in the passing game, because if we're talking about passing game,
that would be good.
Gibbs is the passing down back compared to
that would
Montgomery.
be helpful.
So there might be a situation where they actually have to use him more, which is obviously going to benefit him in the fantasy points. So that's a good thing for him.
But I think they also like scored at like a historic clip. Like
they did.
So like that's the thing. We talk about like regression to the mean for like players individually. Like, but I don't feel like we truly appreciate that or discuss that when it comes to like teams regressing to the means. Mm-hmm. Side note, if I get this back. Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, this is what's this? I gotta give him credit. The underdog guy.
Hayden Hinks.
Yeah, I think that was him. Yeah, he put out a tweet. He was like, we have the Cleveland Browns projected for only this amount of points, but we see so many of their players being hyped, like Njoku, this and that, right? So, one previous discussion, like, how accurate are our projections? I'm not like,
don't get me on my soapbox.
but my whole thing is like the whole tweet was based off of like that projection being accurate. Like that was a benchmark. It was like we haven't projected at this, or Vegas hasn't projected at this, or fantasy sites, as a conglomerate have the Browns projected as this. So, it's crazy that we're hyping up any Browns like skill players. And then the very basis for that statement is like, well, how accurate has that been in the past? But then to kind of tie that into, again, outliers, when you just look at bell curves and things regressing to the mean, like how often do we see like teams who were just like, projected for like X amount of points actually score that low of points, And I don't know. I'm not saying like but I think in my mind that like those guys, like those teams that are projected to score the lowest amount of points and the teams that are projected to score the highest amount of points, I bet if I had to guess, they regress towards the mean.
They're close to each other.
Which means that automatically the lowest teams and the highest teams we're under projecting and over projecting.
Yeah.
That's just a hypothesis.
Not to mention,
anybody want to go out there and do that?
That's a good point. That's a good point. We ain't gonna do no research on it. No statistics whatsoever. Take that and smoke it.
We just throwing random stuff out there.
Smoke that. That came from us. That came from us. Cite us in your work.
Citation.
Shoot.
Yeah.
But they're also playing a last play schedule too, so that's going to benefit them as well.
So like, and I feel
but-
like all those things go into account. And the other thing that goes into account too is like, obviously we use prior years stats to project forward because that's going to be, what's going to allow us to project the best that's going to be the most predictive like stat. So the thing about last year is that last year, like there's different players this year. Oftentimes there's different coaches if you were that bad, right?
different opponents.
Different opponents, but like especially like a different quarterback.
Mhm.
So I don't think we don't mention like how bad the quarterback was last year.
Yeah.
We're talking about how bad the situation is this year for the quarterback. It still was not as bad as DTR last year.
Of course.
One
thing, let's go back to the Lions. If Jared Goff has difficulty behind that offensive line, because historically, as most people are aware, Jared Goff when he's pressured a lot, he struggles a lot. So if that offensive line struggles, and again when they're not playing as many indoor games, do you think Jared Goff can bring down that whole offense? Could you see a situation where everybody in that offense is overvalued because Goff himself struggles? I mean, we've seen games where Goff struggling and that team doesn't do well. So
that's a case against really JMO for me. I mean, like
you can say Laporta too. You could pick out each one of them and say you could see a bear case for all of them if Goff struggles this year. Maybe for 2 or 3 of them.
I feel like it would help Amon-Ra though, because you want to get the ball out quick.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one guy that like is getting depressed right now.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Tesla's gonna do anything this season for them? 3rd round pick. They traded like 4 picks for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I drafted him in my dynasty.
I mean, you would just think they would do something with him. Otherwise, like, why would you invest that much into him?
All right, guys, let's go to pick number 7, CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, George Pickens coming over, like it's a true number 2, a high-end number 2.
Damn.
Is there anything else we should be considering when we are pushing a button on CeeDee Lamb? Something that makes you want to pause a bit on being high on CeeDee?
That's it.
Just George Pickens.
Which is why I think CeeDee should be above Jefferson in wide receiver rankings. Because the running game, I think, is going to struggle. I think Dak is going to return. The OC, Schottenheimer, wants to throw the ball.
Wait, does he? Everything I hear from him says he wants to run the ball more. They want to get back to running.
Man,
I don't know if they can
probably say that, but he's an OC that throws the ball. And again, they don't have the talent to run the ball. They even lost offensive linemen. So it's like that's a team. And every opponent they're playing this year, including maybe even the Giants, are going to be a team that's going to put the pressure on them to keep putting points on the board. So I think, again, if Pickens, and I mentioned this last week, if they do decide to give Pickens a lot of work, you can see it hurting CeeDee, maybe because their numbers might be a little bit more similar. But other than Pickens, I think it's to the moon with CeeDee.
Well, I mean, honestly, like you could literally just see a situation where, like, to me, like the equivalent is Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. Like where the offense is super concentrated. Like,
but wait, you can't do that because the Bengals defense is garbage, while the Cowboys got somebody on defense. Like they got players.
Yeah, but you're not drafting Higgins. You're drafting Higgins in the 3rd round. You're drafting Pickens in the
4th, 5th, right?
In the 5th, 6th.
No, he's like where's Pickens going in?
Pickens ADP is in like back end of the 5th.
He can't be the 6th. No way. Can he? Maybe he is.
He's in the 5th.
He's in the 5th. Okay, 5th.
So that's a 3-round difference. So like that's kind of
2-round difference.
That's probably like
the between CeeDee and I got you.
Yeah.
But again, that's mostly because we haven't seen Pickens with the Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
If we see Pickens this season with the Cowboys have a great season, then that ADP is gonna literally probably be where T. Higgins is this year with them. So I mean, if you believe there's any chance that could happen, maybe Pickens is undervalued right now for you. But again, this question is more about CeeDee.
Yeah,
going back to C, I don't really see a bear case.
I can't think of anything.
Yeah,
because even if Dak gets hurt, whoever's going to come in,
because in reality, his worst case scenario was last year, right?
Yeah,
he lost his quarterback.
Yeah,
no other weapons, so the defense
got hurt
to focus
himself.
on
he missed
him.
2 games. Yeah,
so I mean, I don't know.
I think Pickens helps CeeDee tremendously.
I can see that,
like tremendously.
I can see it. I mean, shit.
I initially had CeeDee as my number 1 wide receiver when we like had our first couple of
over the Chase.
Yeah, over Chase when we had our first couple of episodes.
So where do you have him now?
I don't know, but I need to go back. I need to move him up.
I think he should
I
be
need to move him
too.
up.
I think he should be over Jefferson.
Yeah, you just reminded me what kind of that vibe I was having early on. So,
all right, let's go to pick number 8, Malik Neighbors. Listen, loses Daniel Jones. I mean, I'm not sure if that's
loses him.
right. Loses Daniel Jones. Give me the warts of Malik Neighbors. It doesn't seem like much has changed. That seems worse. It seems like he's gotten, if anything, a slight upgrade at quarterback.
I don't think his situation has worsened at all.
Yeah.
There's not one thing that I can look at to see that his situation has worsened. He played with so many bad quarterbacks last year and so many multiple quarterbacks last year. Mm-hmm. Last year was also his rookie year, and he just absolutely dominated. And now I'm hearing they're going to move around Wan'Dale. This is like the reverse effect of whenever I hear somebody's going to get moved around, I get excited. Yeah. They're moving around Wan'Dale, who this dude was just destroying things in the slot. That was my first tweet of the offseason.
Yeah.
I was like, Wan'Dale had how many targets last
year? Yeah.
Like insane amount of targets. So, you like the first thing I always do is like scroll. Who's getting targets last year? And I was like, you see Wan'Dale's name up there, which is crazy. So if Wan'Dale's getting moved out, that means maybe Malik Neighbors is getting moved in the slot. So maybe we can actually get some easier targets too as well. Mm-hmm. And then you hear Russell Wilson throughout the offseason talk about the reason I can't. I mean, it is Russell Wilson.
Right. Take that with a grain of salt.
Giving this, the talk. But still, he just kept bringing up and kept talking about Malik Neighbors. Like, this offense is Malik Neighbors. Offensive line should be better. But my final point with Malik Neighbors, I know he's supposed to be against. So I'll let him.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll let you get this. But this is my Malik Neighbors case. The pro. I'll let you do the con. The pro is basically my 2024 Gibbs take. He is too good. I don't care what situation he is in. This is one of those rare situations where, I don't care what situation he's in. The talent, if you just watch him play, same way you watch Jamar Chase, just get him on your team.
Yeah.
Don't ask questions. Just get him on your team. You will regret it if you don't.
All right.
Yeah. We got to speak the bear case, right? That's the purpose. Yeah. And I was trying to look up the numbers real quick because I don't remember who led the league in targets, but I think he was one of the, if not the top 5, maybe top 2 in the league in targets. Mm-hmm. So, one of the bear cases, he might just not get as many targets. And it's crazy to say that, but they're talking up height a little bit. They're talking about, they paid Slate. They say his name, Darius Slayton. Mm-hmm. They paid Slayton. They added to the running back room. Theo Johnson's coming back, the highly touted tight end from last year from Penn State or whatever. Yeah. So, those are things that could possibly happen. But the biggest war for me is just that injury he's dealing with. He didn't practice all through OTAs or minicamp.
Yeah.
It's a toe injury. It's a foot injury he was dealing with, I heard, since LSU. And he's not having surgery on it. It's one of those things where he's trying to let it rest to get better. It's one of those things where, a foot injury. And I think it actually took him out a couple games last year.
He did pretty good at LSU.
No, he did good. No, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying something like that. We can see it possibly worsoning.
Yeah, but we said we weren't talking about injuries though. But I get you.
I'm just saying it's important. He's dealing with it right now. I don't want to talk about injuries if it could possibly happen. Yeah. It's more so what he's dealing with right now.
Yeah.
So if that's not the case, and just full disclosure, I am really high on Neighbors this year. So he's one of my top targeted wide receivers. But that's a concern I have. And again, like I said, new quarterback is not always a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. We can say it's a good thing, but like y'all saying, Russ is talking Neighbors up, but he's also talked up Hyatt. He's also talked up Slayton. Wan'Dale is still there.
Mm-hmm.
All these guys are most likely going to get work. So if that target share reduces for Neighbors, it might hurt him a little bit.
All right, let's go to CMC. Obviously, we talked about CMC, injuries, but outside of the injuries, what is the wart for CMC?
There's not one.
Age.
It's not, to me, it's not age, because I see plenty of guys his age that still ball. Like you mentioned, James.
By the way,
Conner.
Neighbors did lead the league in targets last year. He was number 1.
Yeah. So that he regresses in targets, he probably regresses in completion percentage too as well. But with CMC, James Conner did well last year. Derrick Henry did well last year.
James Conner is the same. When I say age, again, I'm talking about just career. James Conner is the same career. Came in the league.
And then you look at CMC, maybe he doesn't really have that much tread on the tires because he's missed time. I actually like the fact, I don't know, in my mind, and maybe I'm like, viewing this wrong. But I like the fact that he got to sit out last year, but like not with like a serious like injury as far as like he tore his ACL, so we got to wait on the ACL to heal, or we got to be concerned about that. Like I like the fact that he just sat out, like he
didn't really sit out though, right? Because all the beginning of the season he was trying to work to come back, and he eventually did come back. Yeah. Remember, at first he was supposed to come back after like 4 or 5 games. And then they were like, no, we're going to leave him longer. And then come back after like 10 games. And then he actually played 4 games. And he didn't look that great. Like, because I had him on some teams.
Because he wasn't supposed to come back. That's why he went back
Possibly
out.
So, but what I'm saying is those 10 weeks, he wasn't just resting.
Yeah.
He was actually working to get back. He came back, played. And I think the game he got hurt was actually probably his best game. And he got hurt like on a run play or whatever.
Yeah,
and
kind of
what was it, ankle or ACL? What
Achilles.
Achilles, yeah. It was an Achilles injury?
No, Achilles tendonitis.
Okay, tendonitis. That's what knocked him out for the season for good?
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean,
I'm not sure that's what knocked him out. That's what started.
Let's not totally be.
It started off as like a calf injury,
which was the Achilles.
Achilles.
But I'm talking about what took him out for the season when he came back. Was that Achilles?
Take a look. I don't think it was. I can't remember if it was Achilles or not.
I think it was.
Still, but I'm not arguing about the
and again, I'm just saying, and again, we just said we weren't going to talk about injuries too much, so I get that, but at the same time, when you start to see it, right? Like
actually, it was a PCL.
That's what it was.
Sprain.
Okay,
in his right knee.
Yeah. But I mean, Todd Gurley, when we started to see it, I mean, we kind of shrugged it off. He was still producing, but then when he was gone, he was gone.
Yeah, but not, I mean, I don't know. For me, like this, like he had the Achilles, I haven't seen the fall off.
No, I haven't. I'll say this every time I see practice clips of him going hard. I'm like, man, chill out. Like you don't have to go that hard right now.
And he's CMC, like he's one of those dudes that's like crazy, like insane, like workout videos.
But that also scares me because like, no, you don't have to go that hard.
It's one of those situations where it's just like, remember how every year I'm like, you could have had 100% of this guy. Yeah. Like, you could have had 100% of CD when he balled out. You could have had 100% Jamar.
Shout out Scott Barrett.
I knew you were going to say something else.
He is still salty about that. 100% of Barkley. Like you could have had 100% of these guys. Like
All right, guys, let's go to pick number 10, Ashton Jeanty. We talked about Ashton a bit when talking about that Vegas team.
Yeah.
The warts on Ashton Jeanty, we just hadn't seen it. I mean,
just hadn't seen it. There's not a lot. I mean, I guess one wart would be like, I don't, how good is the offensive line? I don't know.
How about how good is he, right? Because, I mean, he played with the Mountain West Conference. We haven't seen him against legit competition. And again, I'm not a Jeanty hater at all, so don't take. But I'm just saying we have yet to see him against great competition.
Yeah.
So
these videos about to get clipped.
I mean, he was a top pick. He's gonna get the work.
Yeah,
that's not the issue. I guess one bear case we can say is I think a lot of people drafting with the assumption he's gonna get majority of the work. Close to 80%, 70%. While there's a high chance it might be a lot of sharing workload with Mostert. They actually have come out and said
he's like 34 years old.
He's 33. He's old as hell. But they've actually come out and said there's going to be a shared workload. They're going to be their lightning and thunder type thing. And I mean, Mostert, you're talking about somebody that didn't have much work last year. Mostert did it when he was with the Dolphins,
but he didn't because he looked like he was done. Like you could.
I think he was injured. He got hurt early. He got hurt early.
Even before his injury, he just looked bad. He looked worn out. He was just like
maybe, but the year before that, he looked good.
Yeah. Kind of worn down. He left it all on the table.
Yeah, but it was a little fluky though because it was based on touchdowns. So he scored all those touchdowns.
Jeanty's strength of schedule. I know you're not a strength of schedule guy, but he does have some difficult matchups. So like, how much it's tough. Like I don't. He's tough.
Do you have any Jeanty?
Oh yeah.
You do.
Not a lot. But
where are you taking him?
The problem is he goes like by neighbors. He goes by CMC.
Okay, but so where are you taking him? If the table's pure, where are you taking him?
Second round.
Okay, so you're not going to take him anywhere in the first?
No.
201?
Huh?
201?
Depends on who's off the board. Now? But yeah, if all my running backs are off the board, then yeah, I'll take him.
So you're taking him after all the... Okay, where was the running back?
Who did you have him after? Before him.
Who'd you have him after? In your list, your rankings? You don't remember?
No clue.
So, okay, so you have him after Gibbs.
Yeah, after Gibbs.
That's pretty high, huh?
That's high, yeah.
That's pretty high.
I know, but
but that kind of tracks though. Like if you take him, like maybe not 201, but
I mean the way his rankings look, he's always going to take Achane because Achane is going to go after Gentry most of the time.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So unless he wants to diversify it a little bit,
and I do want to diversify.
Yeah,
because you know, as
the
much as I
person
like
he's never
Achane,
taken is Barkley with this type of ranking list.
Yeah, and as much as I like Achane, my probably highest owned running back outside of like Kenneth Walker now is Jalen Wright.
Got it.
Makes sense.
Okay.
That makes sense. All right, so let's go to pick 11. Let's go and let's talk about Puka. Obviously, Puka's rookie season, historic. Let's talk about the downfalls of Davante Adams coming there and some issues that Puka could see this season. Now that, I guess he's not the only guy they can throw to because Cooper Kupp fell off a cliff last year.
He didn't to start the season though.
He did
one of those Cooper Kupp victory laps after week 1.
Yeah,
but you can see it though. If you watch these guys play, like you just like this guy's not gonna make it. He's not.
I don't know. He had like 20 targets week 1. It was crazy,
and they were like low. They were like, but he couldn't do anything with them.
Yeah, but let's talk about the warts with Puka.
For me, Puka, like the warts are the injuries, and for him, it's significant because I got a ton of Puka everywhere. And if you watch the Rams games, you watch how this guy plays. He plays like, he just throws his body on the line, and then he will often kind of come out of the game wincing.
He'll get up, limping and stuff.
Like it is extraordinarily frustrating.
Yeah,
watching him play, but also exciting. So I think, like to me, like that's like the biggest thing. He's never, or at least to date, been like a red zone beast. And that's why I'm so high
at all.
Yeah, and that's why I've been so high on
3 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, and that's why I've been so high on Davante Adams because I feel like Davante Adams. Last year they were using a lot of what's his name, Robertson, Demarcus Robertson.
Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah, they were primarily using him in the red zone. And it wasn't one of those situations where it was just like they were like looking at Kupp and then looking at Puka. It was like no, he seemed to be like design plays for Demarcus Robinson.
I think that was when they were both out though.
No, that was when they were both in because trust me, as a Puka owner, you're like, why are you not looking at Puka first? I think he got red zone targets, but I just felt like they designed a little bit more than I would like for like the number 4 guy in the offense. So like to me like that may be a little bit of a knock, but he has just so much volume that it really is not that much of a knock. Like the amount of volume that he gets, I still think that he's going to strongly lead this team in targets and receptions and yak yardage. Like he is like just an explosive player.
I think the bear case for him is just like the bear case with CD, and I think it's maybe even more of a concern for him with Davante. They gushed over him when they were signing him. They talk as if they still think he has a lot left in the tank. Davante acts as if he still has a lot left in the tank, and if they do decide to key in on targeting, if Adams takes the same role Kupp had like 3 years ago, then it'll hurt Puka for where Puka's being drafted right now.
I don't think he alphas him out though.
Yeah,
certain situations.
I remember last year Davante was talking like he felt like he was the best wide receiver in the league.
Yeah,
right. That was last year. Like exactly. So if that's the way he feels, and say he actually is that dude, Stafford. We've seen Stafford be like, "Look, I like you, Robert Woods, but this dude Kupp is balling."
Yeah.
Well, you know how I'm on Adams. Like I have zero issue with like Puka Adams. Like like those two guys, I think are you get them on your fantasy team, you golden. Like you're not losing too many games with that.
All right, last pick of the first round, Trey McBride. Give me the downside of Trey McBride.
Man.
They just paid him a lot of money.
They did. A
lot of money, like the most money ever.
Still don't catch touchdowns, and Marvin Harrison take a leap. So that's really the thing.
Yeah, and he got a lot of red zone looks. So again, you kind of go back to the idea of regression. Like it wasn't this that he got targeted a lot and then didn't catch touchdowns. He got targeted a lot and then also got targeted in the red zone and didn't catch them. So you would assume that regresses a little bit. I'm starting to buy into Kyler for the first time. Because definitely if you watch this over the years, I did not feel like Kyler was a good quarterback. Not necessarily that he was a bad fantasy quarterback, but I just felt like he was limited and he would limit his players. And I just never really been on the idea of drafting Kyler, except for his rookie year, but that's because he was a running quarterback and he was cheap, and then maybe 1 year after that. But I'm starting to kind of buy in when I hear like he was obviously coming off the injury, and so like that was an easy reason to sort of kind of like say, you know what, I'm gonna pass. The offense itself and the team were going through changes. They were like, you just weren't getting like these just great, amazing vibes. The offensive coordinator was like definitely someone I wasn't like a huge fan of. I still am not. But just kind of hearing, you're just starting to hear the drum beats about I'm gonna run more. I'm gonna run more. I'm gonna run more. And to me, like a running Kyler really helps this
Let me
offense
ask you
out
this.
a lot more.
What has changed over there?
So what?
In Arizona, what has changed on their offense?
The biggest change is that he's coming off. He's a full year removed from the ACL. I think that's like really important.
So
Mobility-wise.
so his health,
His health.
just because but as far as personnel, coaching changes, like nothing's changed,
Nothing
right?
has changed.
That's what scares me. Like they could talk and say things, but they did what they did last season with the struggle they had and continue to do what they did. They made no changes really.
I will say this though. If you want to like, if I want to use the he got healthier argument, if you look pre-bye and post-bye, as far as like their passing game numbers, and you look at Marvin Harrison's targets, like everything went up. So they seem to be passing a lot more coming out of the bye.
Okay. I mean, maybe it's just that like every year, right? The offensive coordinators have bad season. They retain them. They talk about how much they're going to do different and change. It's going to improve, and they just be doing the same stuff. Like what we doing? Like okay,
they do.
That's what the Texans OC bamboozled us with.
So that's a good point.
All right, guys, that's our episode this week.
Sleepers.
All right, sleepers.
One sleeper. I want to mention him last week, but we didn't talk about sleepers. But for the 49ers, Jordan Watkins. I was listening to the beat writers talk about him during practice. And again, Pearsall hasn't been practicing, or he wasn't practicing during the offseason workout. Neither was Ayuk, obviously. But the way they're talking about him, they're acting like he might be a better player than Pearsall. Like just straight, if healthy. They're talking like he's faster than Pearsall. And he's bigger than Pearsall. And Pearsall is not an established made man yet. Like he's still just going into his second year, and he didn't have a full year last year. And he wasn't just like the greatest player last year, anyways.
And they got zero issues with drafting a guy high and then playing the guy that they took at the very last
pick. Like
Purdy's
making comments like, man, he's been balling out here in practice. Like everybody's like talking him up a little bit.
And Pearsall has an injury history.
Right. He's injured right now. So, and again, this is dynasty talk right here. So Pearsall.
I hear that.
Jordan Watkins.
That's like a name to remember for redraft.
No, definitely remember that. Even in best ball, maybe think about him. Maybe one of those.
That's like that week
picks.
1 pick. Like say Pearsall, has a re-injury to the hamstring. That's like that week 1 or pre-week 1 dollar waiver wire pick.
Yeah.
Just add him to your team.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, did he just take over the Debo role or
somewhat?
Right.
Right. Especially because nobody's talking about it. And then the second guy is going to be Tyler Conklin. I've been a fan of Tyler Conklin for years. He's a lot older now. I think he's 29 now. New team, so new system. But everybody's kind of been talking about Oronde Gadsden to take that tight end job. Not so fast. Conklin is still there. They just paid him. He's been working. They like him for what I hear. And he's free. I don't even know if he's being drafted.
He's not. And this is a crazy thing. Like I was drafting a ton of them because I'm like, it's a first look game.
That's the other
and he plays the Chiefs, who gave up a lot to the tight end. That defensive system has not changed.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Damn.
And you look at the Chargers, and if you're Spagnuolo and you're like, okay, let me game plan for the Chargers. The last thing you're thinking about is like, we got to take out Conklin. We got to take out that tight end. You're 100%. Like, okay, this dude, Lad McConkey looks like he can ball.
Mike Williams.
Even QJ is fast. Mike Williams is fast. Trey Harris is fast as hell. And then, oh my God, they got Amari and Hampton. Even if you're scared about a Najee Harris, they got these revamped line. We got to stop the run. Talking about Justin Herbert running a little bit, but
that's a DFS play.
So, man, we shouldn't be. I've been either I've been trying to not draft as much because I felt like I was getting too much, and I was like, maybe I'm just overthinking this. But now I'm gonna start drafting more because he's up there with my highest owned tight ends too as well. Because then you can drop him too.
I'm not the only one then.
Yeah, you get to drop him right after that first look. It's like, oh, okay, he didn't do anything. He's one of the first players you can drop if you felt like he wasn't going to do anything throughout the season.
All right, guys, that's truly our first first running back rankings of the season. Please like, rate, subscribe. We're out.
You're gonna drive me crazy.